Hello, today I'm going to talk about a really worthwhile horror movie called Malignant. Enjoy the movie. In 1993, in the Simon Research Hospital, under the auspices of Dr. Weaver, there is a violent test subject named Gabriel, who breaks his arm when a guard tries to calm him down. Dr. Weaver herself manages to sedate the patient, and after such bad behavior, she decides to get rid of a tumor unknown to us. Because Gabriel through the screen does not look like a human anymore, the first words he says through the radio, and these words mean death to everyone here. We are transported back to the present to a pregnant girl, Madison. The girl looks around the baby's room and walks in on her boyfriend Derek, who is freaking out because his pregnant wife is working and will likely kill their baby again. She asks him not to touch her belly, and he beats her head against the wall, and when he leaves to get ice, the girl locks herself in and goes to bed. At night, strange things start to happen in the house, because eventually Derek sees that someone is sitting in front of the TV, and when he turns on the light it becomes invisible and gets up from the couch, after which it kills Derek. And when Madison comes down to the noise, she sees a dead guy and an otherworldly force behind his back, which chases the girl and eventually knocks her out. The police arrive on a call from the neighbors. They send the girl to the hospital, while they themselves wonder the cause of death of the young guy, as if he was in an accident. Madison opens her eyes at the hospital, trying to find out what happened at her sister Sydney's, but noticing the loss of her child becomes hysterical. When the police arrive, trying to find out about the intruders, but Cindy reports that Madison has had 3 miscarriages in 2 years, so she has been silent for 2 days. Officer Shaw goes to the office, where an investigator tells him that the boyfriend sometimes beat up the girl according to neighbors, and since there were no signs of forced entry, that could be a strong motive for murder. However, when the girl returns home 2 weeks later, she convinces her sister that she can handle it alone, and that same night she sees a dark silhouette in the darkness across the street, after which the house again began anomalies, and Madison closed herself in her room. In the morning, she decided to put a deadbolt on the door, and while she was considering the wall she hit her head on, her sister came to the window. In the house over heart-to-heart talks, Madison tells us that she wants to know what it's like to be related by blood, because her mom adopted her when she was 8 years old, and she doesn't remember everything that happened before. She only knows from her mom that her biological mother died in childbirth. We are suddenly transported to a girl who gives tours of old Seattle, because this city is underground. After a working day, she turns off the light as usual, but this time she hears a strange noise from the darkness, but when she turns on the light there is no one. Only from above something terrifying falls on her. It ties the girl up in the attic and through the radio asks her to wait a while for it to find Dr. Weaver, who after a couple of hours gets a call on her phone saying it's time to cut out the tumor. After the call ends, she goes into her records archive and realizes who called. And Madison has already had the ghost of a man running around the house that night. Behind the washing machine door she sees Dr. Weaver, who is immediately grabbed by something dark. And then the girl's world is deformed, and she watches the creature kill the doctor with one of the premiums, but from his own screaming wakes up only at dawn. The police find only the base from the murder weapon, but recognize a familiar handwriting. Only Officer Shaw besides finds a picture of a little girl in the floor. The monster took the second part with him to process for a future murder weapon, and when the girl tries to break free, asks her not to even try. Meanwhile, Cindy tries to calm down her sister, who claims to have seen the doctor's death from her house. The officers worked late into the night on the doctor's archives, studying all the sick people. Only Shaw decided to call it a day, and asked his partner to make a sketch of the girl at the age of 30. At night, Madison wakes up to a man sleeping next to her, but it turns out to be a nightmare in which a creature comes over her and kills him with Dr. Weaver's reward, and then notices Madison. She wakes up from the nightmare and immediately goes to the police to have them check out the murder scene. Investigating the hotel, Madison pointed them to they skeptically discuss her theory, but their opinion completely changes when they find a dead body in the room. In the department, she makes a sketch and goes to the bathroom, where she gets a call from Gabriel, who explains that he will kill the guilty one by one, and that for him, she will always be Emily, because Madison is not her real name, and in a moment she suddenly asks Gabriel to stop, and she didn't know his name before. She takes her sister and leaves, and the officer gets a sketch and realizes that the girl was one of the doctor's patients. The girl and her sister go home and ask her mom who Gabriel is. Her mom shows them a video from her 9th birthday party, where the whole family is having a party, when suddenly Madison starts talking to her invisible friend Gabriel, who tells her that they are not her real parents, and later her father videotapes the girl begging on the phone not to hurt the baby and her parents. Officer Shaw was working late again, and found a stash of flash drives in one of the folders, inserted one with Emily's signature, and found a video from 1992, in which the doctor says that the girl was diagnosed with psychosis, and expressed it in the form of the girl telling how she sees spirits and hears demons. He finds a photo with 2 victims and 1 doctor, whose address he instantly recognizes. Only Madison already has another vision in which she sees the murder of the doctor, and Officer Shaw bursts into the room. She yells to him that Gabriel is in the room, and a fight breaks out. The monster runs away, and he runs even creepier. The officer chases him outside, jumps after him in the basement, gets into all the crevices, and at one point there is a lull. The monster attacks him again, but loses and runs away. Shaw tells Madison that she was one of the patients of those 3 doctors who are already dead. He suggests she go into hypnosis to dig up details in her subconscious, and she agrees. We're shown her past. When her parents didn't believe her Gabriel was messing up all the things in the house, she was the only one who could see him, but no one believed her. He had such a power of influence that by dialing the girl on the phone, he was able to talk her into giving her mom a present and bringing her a cake in bed. But when she was about to cut off a piece, she almost at the last moment came to the realization of her actions, because she literally almost cut her mother's stomach. The hypnosis gets out of control, and she is rushed out. She explains to the police that Gabriel's behavior clearly indicated that he wanted to kill the fetus, because otherwise it would simply not be needed. So it happened. After the birth of Sydney, she forgot about him, but today the killer introduced himself with Gabriel's name. Meanwhile, the girl in the monster's lair cuts her bonds and falls through the floor, right into Madison's living room. The police arrest Madison and find the murder weapon, along with the costume, in the attic. They try to ask her why she tricked them, but she blows up the lamps and says it's Gabriel. The officer gets a call. Gabriel talks to him and admits that he's a figment of her imagination, and she's been calling him the devil all her life. She's going to jail for now. And Cindy finds a certificate of adoption and the address of an old hospital to find records of something growing in Madison's womb with her. And a tape she brings home tells us that Madison's real mother was a raped 15-year-old girl who gave her 2 children to doctors, asking her to take care of Emily and calling him a monster. The woman who fell from the attic turns out to be Madison's birth mother. And the scariest part is revealed on the tape. The girl says that Gabriel orders her to do terrible things, but when the camera changes the angle, we see how the girl literally did not separate in the womb of her mother with her brother and acquired a parasitic twin, which in this duo plays a dominant role, and Madison only feeds him. Madison herself at this time begins to be bullied by the inmates and then beaten. We further begin to explain that Gabriel convinced the girl that she was living a normal life, but at certain moments he took control of her and used her for his own purposes. In fact, when the doctors realized that Gabriel was evolving, they removed what they could and encased the rest in a skull. In the cell, Madison rips her skull open to free Gabriel and let him dispose of all the women, and the stupid guard allows her to capture herself and take the keys. Sydney is quicker to call the officer and warn him about the surprise in Madison's body, which was awakened by her ex-boyfriend when he banged her head against the wall. The monster has already gotten his stuff and set out to literally maul the entire police station. At one point, the officer manages to shout to Madison, and the girl sees that she is sitting in a cell, but already with dead policemen, and Gabriel, smelling it, rushed to escape. They immediately realize that he was going to the hospital to get his mother, but there, after the death of the guard, he meets Cindy. The monster wants to kill her, but when her mother wakes up and apologizes, he gets lost and is shot by Shaw. Then the knife stabs the policeman in the shoulder, and Cindy is pinned to the bed. She begs her sister to use force, because he killed all her children, because he wanted to feed on them. But nothing comes out, Cindy is killed, and the monster decides to strangle the mother. Immediately his world dissolves into darkness with bloody footprints. This world was created by Madison. Now she can do the same as him. They share the same brain, so she took his powers and locked him in her head in a cage, so she would be ready for him next time. Everyone stays alive, and the wound on the back of her head instantly heals. Using his powers, she throws Cindy off the bed, and after exchanging sweet nothings they hug. But an incandescent light bulb reveals that Gabriel still exists.